IVM.
Hi and welcome to Kanoon. This is Amber from E17 Ventures, and welcome to our today's episode on Kanoon. It's with someone really special from across the continent, I would say, and it's been our effort to get people from the legal field all around the world onto the show and maybe integrate more from a diversity and from an inclusion perspective. So I have a very interesting personality today by the name of Naiyna Sharma, all the way from Canada. And Naiyna, welcome to the show, and thanks for lending out your time to us and being able to do that. So Naiyna's done a couple of things which is pretty impressive. She runs this whole South Asian Women in Law Mentorship program back home in Canada. So Naiyna, now I'll request you to introduce yourself, because I see you've done a host of things, and probably it'd be better to hear it from you yourself. Over to you, Naiyna.
Hello, namaste. Thank you for having me today. I'm so grateful to be invited on this platform. I had the opportunity to see so much of your work, which was refreshing in the areas of gender discrimination, gender-based violence, LGBTQIA2+, and the environment. And I think it's so wonderful that you're out there bringing voices with this perspective of diversity and inclusion and giving people an opportunity to hear on these topics. So thank you so much for this work and for this invitation. Like you mentioned, my name is Naiyna Sharma, and I'm a lawyer here in Canada, more specifically in the National Capital Region in Ottawa. I'm also the creator and director of the South Asian Women in the Law Mentoring Program. So it's a program where we work to pair racialized South Asian candidates, specifically self-identifying female, with their counterparts. So again, self-identifying South Asian women in the law who are established licensed lawyers. We pair them together because research has shown that in doing so, we offer richer mentorship opportunities, and we also are able to help these students overcome some of the tangible impacts that they feel because of their gender and ethnicity, in terms of the challenges and opportunities and the power dynamics they face when they enter the legal profession. In addition to this, we also do the Chai Chat Law series. Chai is important and universal connector for all of us South Asians. So what we do on the Chai Chat Law series prior to COVID was actually offer one-on-one networking opportunities for these students and paralegals with lawyers and paralegals. But now what we do is we have turned them virtual. So I think COVID has brought us some challenges, but also opportunities. So through Chai Chat Law, we invite, very much like you, a lawyer on our platform, and we hear about their journey in the law and what mentorship has meant to them. In addition to that, I also sit on the North American South Asian Bar Association, and there are some established partners and chapters in Canada, and in 2021, we'll be launching one as well. So that's just a little bit about some of the things we do. I'm a very active mentor, and I think mentoring is very important to me. So that was a big way in which I channeled some of this work.
Wow, and that's a very, I would say, for a brief intro, we've got all the points that we wanted on the show. But I mean, we see you're doing a lot of things, and that's something really, innovative. And now I'll start asking Naiyna specific questions, right? And that's the reason we have her here. Naiyna, if I put it to a contrasting situation here in India, I mean, and since I also practice and in the courts, a couple of things that I've seen in terms of diversity is that India is slowly changing, right? So there are things that are getting better, but we still see a lot of discrimination, and I would say globally as well, whether it's women or otherwise, in the legal profession where the representation is masked, right? So how did you come up with this inception of, the mentorship program? How did it all start, and what gave you to come out with this initiative? Because we have so many loyal listeners and students who also look to move to Canada and vice versa around the world for something of an initiative that you have. How did you come around with it, and how did you start with it?
Amber, what's interesting is that despite the status of women in different countries around the world, right, the issues that female lawyers face are actually universal. And in doing some of the research and seeing where some of our Indian self-identifying female lawyers are in their career development and matching them with some of the stats in Canada and the US and the UK, what I found was interesting is that the trends are quite similar. So while we are seeing significant progress in terms of self-identifying women lawyers entering the field and
Right.
entering law school as a precursor, we are still seeing major gaps, as you mentioned, at the higher echelons, where we look at partners, associates,
Right.
and managers. And so I think that if they are, South Asian women looking to move to Canada, they can be prepared to see some of those things still exist, which gives you an idea that in a very male-dominated profession, there's still a long way to go, irrespective of what country you are. Having said that,
Right.
Canada actually has one of the largest populations of, in terms of visible minorities overall, of South Asian. So we do see a high proportion of South Asian lawyers. Specifically, I'm in Ottawa, so in the province of Ontario. So much of my stats and my research speak to that. But where I'm located, the community is much smaller compared to larger areas like Toronto or
Right.
in British Columbia that you may find as a province. So for me, I think experiencing it as a student, although I did have a lot of mentors and guidance and support from different backgrounds, seeing South Asian lawyers and South Asian women was a rarity for me. It wasn't something that I experienced not only in the course of my career in policy,
Right.
politics, and the law, but not even at school. And so once I finally did become a lawyer and I was called to the bar, in the course of preparing a diversity event and having a panel,
Right.
what was interesting that took place is that we were trying to think of speakers who we could call, kind of like you had been speaking about in terms of diversity and inclusion. And what was
Right.
interesting is, though these women likely existed and were doing
Right.
amazing work, nobody, including me at the table, could name who these women were. So as a result, we certainly couldn't invite them. And that's something, that a lot of research and articles speak to, is how do you have someone at the table if
Right.
they're not even in the room? And so that really, set me off in a way where I came home and I started thinking about it. And just in a short brainstorm, I thought about myself as a South Asian woman and how I had the identity factors to be able to respond to that community. And it just snowballed from there. And when we started, it was really just me and my partner who created the website and, created some of the database for the matching. And we didn't anticipate it to take off, especially given Toronto was quite close by and they have a number of representatives. But what I can tell you is the need was great. And the number of people we've had who've offered not only their services as mentors, but specifically in terms of mentees, the need that they have voiced has been so great. And it has been such a gift to be able to serve this segment of the population.
No, absolutely. And for something like this, the initiative like this, that when I saw you guys up online, I read about that. It was something very interesting because there are quite a few bodies, I would not say even more, globally that are present and are trying to do something like this. For all our listeners out there, let me tell you, when I talk about representation, at least in the legal market, Naiyna has very rightly highlighted the points from a partnership perspective, from an associate perspective, and I would say from a practicing perspective, as we see advocates in India in courts, if you look at the representation of women, it's starkly shocking that there are roughly around 10 to 15% maximum, and they would not want to come to the courts feeling just not so being inclusive, whether it's the workplace, it's the environment, or whatever may be the reasons, due to benefits, etc., etc. Coming to the corporate space of things as well, I would like to highlight that there is a huge gap there as well. Though India is representing about 35%, but there is a gap, and then there are guys like Naiyna who are running these amazing initiatives. So, Naiyna, coming to my next question to you, we've spoken about what this is all about. Can you tell me what would be the procedure for someone to get into, your mentorship program, or, how would you coach them, or what does the program entail? Could you just give us a brief about, how people can avail this benefit, how some women who are moving to Canada can avail some benefit out of it, and what would be the procedure process, and how do you orient them, and so forth, so on?
Well, one thing I'd like to reassure the women who are practicing law and coming to Canada,
right,
aside from a number of steps that they have to take in order to get licensed in Canada, is that there are a number of organizations. We're very proud of what we do, but in my personal capacity, I'm a very staunch advocate for the fact that you should think of your network in a very abundant and vast way in which you can, secure it with mentors from all different areas, all different backgrounds, and leverage those later in order to shape your career in a way that is fulfilling and wholesome, and perhaps even in a way where you can even build some long-term lasting friendships. Having said that, in addition to the South Asian Women in the Law Mentoring Program, there are also numerous chapters of the South Asian Bar Association. There's also the Federation of Asian Canadian Lawyers and the Canadian Association of South Asian Lawyers. So there are a number of organizations that are in place, and outside of ones that are from a South Asian focus, there are also a number of mentoring opportunities and organizations that are based and centered around women. So in terms of that support, it does exist. Specifically for South Asian Women in the Law Mentorship Program, we are free. So really, it's just a very simple accessing SAWLMP.com on our website and filling out a mentorship form. It takes less than 5 minutes. And what we do is we try to ask you a little bit more than what do you study and what your year of college is and where you are. We really want to get to the crux of what your needs are. So for example, we do have students that write to us and they say, they're the first in their family to go to university. They're first generation immigrants. These are big things for them. And they want to speak to lawyers who also have that understanding. Some of them are from slightly, more challenged socioeconomic conditions, and they need somebody who can speak to them from that space. And so once they fill out that mentorship form, what we do is we've asked a number of questions as well from our mentors, and we make sure that we pair them with someone who can respond not only to the type of work that they do, but also respond to some of those core needs that they need support with as well, and guidance and, empowerment.
Well, very nicely put by you there, because generally a feedback which I've been getting, of course, through, when we try to assist people on, navigating into a new market by connecting them to overseas lawyers, etc., is that, we do feel that they say, hey, this is a completely different market. And Canada, I've heard, that it's completely a different ball game than what we see in Commonwealth jurisdictions across other areas. I would say even in India or Britain, for that matter of fact, because there is a mixed bag of things and it's a completely new environment for somebody to blend in, right? So, I'll put a question mark on some of the gray areas here now, and we'll try to put Naiyna into a fix now. I think that's how this podcast should be, because she's really giving us a lot of good content. So my question to you would be, where do you see this going in the next 10 years, I would say, with regards to navigating the gender gap? Do you see, with such initiatives, what do you see? And how does the South Asian Women in Law Mentorship Program contribute to, I would say, reducing this gender gap? And what have been your stats? And maybe if I ask you, how much of it has been possible? Let's say from something as small as, let's say, whether it is instilling confidence in future, mooters or future, junior attorneys, or let's say from a practicing field. Where do you see yourself with that, and any new initiatives you're coming out with to probably, take this forward?
That's a loaded question.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, let's try to unpack some of that. So I think to your first point in terms of where do we see the gender gap going, I think research coming out of India and Canada and the US, they speak to the same things, that, some of it could be that female lawyers have come slightly later than when male lawyers were permitted into the field. Having said that, there are also different dynamics in terms of family planning that enter into many considerations for women. And I think that in India, US, the UK, and Canada, we see that the retention of female lawyers and their attrition rate in terms of their departure from varying fields in the law is quite high. So I think that, from point A to Z, what we're looking at, mentorship is very much at the beginning of a career spectrum, if we look at it. And then when we look at, what can be done in terms of gender gaps and systemic discrimination, we're really looking at where all of the onus is not on those who are entering the law. It really needs to be at the organizational, institutional levels, that, those that are managing and regulating the profession. That's where we need to see the change. And that can look like, not just having nice policies, because I think, there's a growing movement now for diversity and inclusion, but we see a lot of organizations and institutions and firms instrumentalizing diversity, which means that they use it as a checklist, and they use it as a way to be seen and identified as doing the work. But in terms of the concrete work, it's not being done. So I think in terms of metrics, in terms of whether that's offering childcare services, flexibility in terms of work week, whether that's allowing remote work or understanding in a gap that if you are hiring female, self-identifying female lawyers who have identified family planning as part of something that they're looking to take on within the next 5-7 years, not penalizing them, but as an organization, as an institution, as a firm, making sure that your recruitment and your hiring is taking in those considerations to backfill those positions rather than those women who return no longer having a seat at the table. So I think where we fit in is very much at the outset. So when these young women are, or I say young, but quite frankly, we also do peer mentorship, and we do support women mid to late career level who want to meet with other women. We do offer those services. But having said that, we're really focused on the outset when these students are going in and when they're feeling overwhelmed, when they're feeling anxious, when they're not sure how they're going to navigate the networking, the spaces that they feel they're not represented in and they don't see themselves in. So when you speak about where do we see this in 10 years, it's difficult to say in the sense that, you know, progress is slow and surely coming, but it will take time to see how organizations and institutions respond to this. Sometimes we see, you know, a very strong push forward, but, you know, it can come at a cost where we see things regress as well. And in terms of where we see ourselves as an organization, I think what's important is for us to recognize that we're a piece of the puzzle. So we don't do it all, but what we do, I think, is important in terms of not only empowering these young women, but giving them an example that success can look like them. That, you know, it doesn't just come at these exceptional rates where the very few are being recognized by committees and award galas, but that there are numerous South Asian women out there who are making inroads, who are flourishing, who are succeeding, and they can very much see themselves as part of that cohort and that larger picture.
No, absolutely. And, you know, that's one of the things with navigating the gender gap, I would say that, I mean, giving out a number or maybe fixating on, let's say, where we see ourselves would be a tough question for you to answer because it's something that's dependent on so many factors. But, you know, kudos to you guys for already doing that because we have a huge chunk of South Asian women, you know, present in the North American sector that, I mean, having something like this was definitely help them. Now, Naiyna, before we close, and last two questions from my side, I would say they would be any personal experience where you felt that, you know, I mean, and I would like you to narrate that without naming people or without even telling me where it happened, but maybe one of those instances, and maybe then I'll tell you one where I have seen so many now, and you know, where you felt that, okay, well, this was not expected, but this is something, it was very minor, but it was really something that ticks the box that, hey, this is discrimination to the core. Just to give you an example, well, I felt this was where one of the partners, and I'm not naming him, way back in my career, he would just have said that, hey, this is not meant for women. I would accommodate this work during this period to this gentleman because I think, I mean, she would have to go through family life, etc., etc. Though it was a statement made maybe over, I would say, coffee in the evening, but there was a hint of, you know, a discrimination that one could sense through. Maybe I mean, you've had this experience somewhere in your elucidated career, maybe I would say, or out of the context, anywhere, being a lawyer. Maybe if you could tell one instance which I can correlate my listeners to with regards to your experience.
I think what's really important, Amber, is, of course, to shed light on the fact that, you know, women do face a disproportionate amount of discrimination in the workplace. But I think a nuance that we often leave out of the dialogue is that many times this discrimination can be perpetuated by self-identifying women as well onto other women. And I think that's something that women feel sometimes fearful saying, or there's not a very, you know, open forum for that discussion. So I think it's important for self-identifying women lawyers to realize and not gaslit themselves if you are feeling that level of discrimination, abuse, or sort of sometimes in intersectional feminism, there's a level of ageism that takes place where, you know, if women before you experience a certain level of struggle, then, you know, you may feel or you may perceive that their empathy towards you is not the same. And I think that is a very true and real thing that is felt. In terms of, have I ever experienced it? I think I can give you an example in two different ways. And they were both actually interestingly experienced at the hands of other women. And I think it's important to speak about so that women can feel comfortable and safe that is a dimension they experience. But for one job interview, I had an engagement ring on, and the interviewer noticed it and quite openly asked me if I had children or if I was planning on children, and then turned to the second interviewer on the panel and actually said, well, we can expect her to leave quite soon then. And I was still in the process of interviewing. So that was one experience. And a second experience was that when I did go for an interview for a position, and it was offered to me later on, during the course of the interview at the very end, the interviewer said, oh, wonderful. You're also a visible minority. And then she checked a little box, I think, on her hiring recruitment form.
Wow.
So, you know, those are instances that you may feel, but I think it's important for people to remember that if ever you feel like your worth and merit as a candidate is questioned or undermined, to keep pushing forward and remember that there are numerous other individuals who need to see you in positions where they can believe and they can be heard and they can be represented, and that you are making a difference in that respect. So while these experiences are very difficult and you should reach out for the resources that you need, and where possible, just continue these type of experiences and employment opportunities if they exist, and speak to them. It's just to remember to not let those experiences mark you in a way that you feel is impossible to move forward, because there is some little girl out there who is looking to see your face out in the sea of those lawyers. And when they look at you, they think, wow, me too. So just remember that.
No, absolutely. And very well put by you there, you know, that it is not only, you need to see from all areas and perspectives that, you know, even women can cause this and maybe women bosses can cause this to happen to you, if I put it in a simplified way. With your experience, I'll just narrate one before we close down. This happened way back in 2012, and I was supposed to handle a customs hearing. And we were at the port, and I had a female colleague with me. And the gentleman who was addressing the hearing from the public sector side just walked up. And this is pretty interesting. So for everyone out there, he just walks up and says, Mr. Rana, we think maybe the lady guest who is with you or the council, she can be excused from the other parts of this, because it is a predominant room full of XYZ individuals, to which, because she was just about I would say a year junior to us. And I was also new to the whole idea of the hearing, etc. And she said she would want to be there. And I told him that, categorically that I do wish to have my colleague on the bench. But the circumstances were made in such a way that indirectly it was communicated that, you leave the place. And when we did that and we came back and reported to our partner saying that, hey, you know what, this is what's happened at the port. And then surprisingly, what the partner said again was shocking, that you shouldn't have worn these clothes and walked into this particular hearing, because you are the distraction, right? And we would not want you to do something like this. Don't go to a place where you invite trouble. So that was one of the ticking points. You can have, I'm saying, for let's say how the mind works, you can have all the prejudice, you can have all the discrimination you want, but it cannot surface to that extent. This is, and everybody just laughed about it, right? And they said it's okay. So I'm not naming anybody right now that, hey, they were wrong or the situation was wrong. It's just that how casually it came out. It reminds us as to how okay people are with it, and how okay women are with it. And after that, it became a practice that female colleagues would not go to such hearings or go to the department or go publicly to such places where the government interaction was involved in a very hectic way, which was shocking for us. But something on your lines, then I would say this is pre-hand that I've experienced, and at the corporate level, it's so common here in India as well. But any last points from your side, Naiyna, before we close? It's been a very, I would say, deepening conversation with you for the past 25 odd minutes. But any last piece of advice, any last new, you want to talk about maybe a new venture, and how can people come and get in touch with you once again? Maybe if you can just tell our listeners, more than happy to have all of those details.
Well, I thank you on behalf of your colleague for that sense of allyship. That's very important. We can talk about mentorship, but yes, without allyship, without sponsorship, which is the idea of, aside from just mentoring, you're also advocating for individuals to take on those positions, take on those leadership roles, get that exposure. All of these things sort of fall short. So I think those are very important aspects. In terms of women who are interested in our program, like I said, you can contact or get online to SAWLMP.com. We also have an Instagram handle, which is SAWLMP. And we do often get women from India who would like to know more about our program or who are wondering how we can help assist them find mentors within India. And we do try our best to see what contacts we can leverage to help that. So we'd be happy to hear from you and see what else we can do to support you. And at the end of the day, just remember that the journey in law is a long one and you have to mentally prepare yourself for the challenges ahead. But just remember, there are also opportunities and a path for you to pave. So just make sure that you have a broad network of wonderful people that can support and cheer you on and that are not only there to constantly coach you, which is, I think, at times sometimes comes from a critical aspect, but also there to support you and congratulate you and celebrate you for all the milestones you do take on. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be here with you today and to hear from you and your experiences. It's been a beautiful opportunity to connect. It's one thing to have Indian ancestry, but it's a beautiful thing to be able to speak to somebody from your homeland. So thank you so much.
No, an absolute pleasure, Naiyna. Thank you so much for being with us here. And as you rightly pointed out that, leadership, mentorship, they're both equally essential. Either from a gender perspective, I would say, and from the law perspective. And it's a long, long journey, and it's evolving every now and then. It's something that's very enticing and very, very bright future, even for someone who's experienced like us. And maybe I'm very nascent in this field, I would say, but still very enlightening. And thanks, Naiyna, for being here. It's so amazing to see somebody talk so vociferously about this and give us all the insight. We're looking forward to have you more with other guests on the show and talk about this initiative in detail. And thank you so much for being with us. Looking forward to connecting with you again.
Always a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Know Your Kanoon. Catch Know Your Kanoon on the IVM website or the app or anywhere you get your podcast from.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. So it's been a great week on the network, as it almost always is. Let me give you a couple of highlights that you should definitely check out. Chiki Sarkar was on This Round's on Me with Gauri Devi Dayal. Great conversation. Think you will really enjoy that. Shlok Ramachandran of our new show, Millennial Athlete, who guested on one of our older shows, Football Shirtball. He's a big football fan in addition to being a professional athlete. So I think it's a really interesting connection. And they had a great conversation about football just generally. Nankari, our new show about Indian food, hosted by Sadaf and Archit, talk about laddus this week and basically, how awesome they are. It's Diwali week, and I think that's an apt conversation for them to have. On the Wire Talks podcast, Siddharth Bhatia has a great conversation with Dylan Mohan Gray about his work on Bad Boy Billionaire, specifically around the Vijay Mallya episode. Definitely check out the conversation if you want to know more about that. And finally, let me recommend the Edges and Sledges Cricket podcast this week. They take a look back at the IPL 2020. They go over the final, Delhi versus Mumbai, and how that played out. And they also create their dream IPL 2020 fantasy team. Do check that out. I think you'll enjoy that as well. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Beta, did you know 79% of all scientists in NASA are Indian only?
देखो, इंडिया में टैक्स सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास भरती है. Everyone is just enjoying free यार.
आजकल के youngsters are only interested in partying and enjoying. उनको देश की पड़ी ही नहीं है.
बेटा तुम बस शादी कर लो, उसके बाद तो you can enjoy life like anything.
I will tell you what this country needs. This country needs 15 years of dictatorship. That is the only way to become a superpower. See the Chinese, how much they've progressed.
सुनो, तुमने ये WhatsApp forward देखा?
So what's common between all of these statements?
They're all absolutely rubbish.
Fake WhatsApp forwards that spread like wildfire.
And statements that defy any logic.
We are here to debunk them all.
We're your family WhatsApp group's worst nightmare. We're what happens when you read a book.
Basically, we're just a bunch of guys who want to cut through the bullshit of everyone saying this, how it won't be true.
So that the next time someone confidently squeezes out some WhatsApp or Twitter BS, you can look them dead in the eye and go, Uncle, please sit.
So join me, Joel.
And me, Tushar.
Every Mondays for a fresh new episode of Uncle, Please Sit.